In the world of Japanese manga and anime, only few could achieve the colossal success of Dragon Ball. The story revolves around Son Goku, a Saiyan born on Planet Vegeta, who was secretly sent to Earth by his parents. Trained in martial arts, he sets out with his friend Bulma in search of 7 magic balls, which when collected, can call upon a wish-granting dragon, Shenron. This classic shonen manga of 1984 travelled beyond the comic book pages and went on to become a global phenomenon. But how? To understand Dragon Ball's worldwide legacy, we have to first go back to a small artist's desk in Japan, Akira Toriyama. Before Dragon Ball, Toriyama was known for Dr. Slump and a kung fu shonen manga, Dragon Boy. Now, those of you who've read Dragon Boy can vouch that the illustration and panels have clearly influenced the early developments of Dragon Ball. That is not all. Toriyama was heavily influenced by Journey to the West, which was reflected in some of the martial arts moves pulled off by his Dragon Ball characters. What started as an adventure comedy, Dragon Ball soon became a fan favourite and was serialised in Weekly Shonen Jump from 1984 to 1995. The manga had 519 chapters, collected into 42 tankobon, and was first adapted into 2 anime series by Toei Animation. Titled as Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, respectively, the anime was broadcast from 1986 to 1996. This was followed by several other television series developed by the studio, with the latest one, Dragon Ball Daima, airing in 2024. The franchise only grew bigger with 21 animated feature films, television specials, short films, and an official live-action movie. With over 260 million manga copies sold worldwide and the anime streaming in over 80 countries, the Dragon Ball franchise has single-handedly popularized Japanese animation in the Western world. The story's artwork, humour, and characterization have been highly praised, making it an extremely popular anime spanning over the decades. Dragon Ball has a tendency of merchandising its brand, and since its inception in the 1980s, it went on to become one of the highest-grossing anime franchises in history, primarily because of the large number of toys, action figures, trading cards, and apparel sold by the company. Fashion brands like Adidas also launched the Dragon Ball sneaker collection. Eminent athletes like LeBron James have sported Dragon Ball themed t-shirts to mark the crossover between NBA and the anime. Goku is now basically a style icon in urban casual fashion culture. Moreover, video games have also contributed immensely to the increase of Dragon Ball's global reach. Games like Dragon Ball Dragon's Great Exploration, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Dragon Ball Budokai have garnered a multi-generational fan following. Nowadays, mobile games like Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle have increased the popularity of the franchise immensely. Dragon Ball has become such an obsessive phenomenon that many followers even developed fan-made games and satirical animated shows like the Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Fun fact, the American singer Kanye West even referenced Dragon Ball in his rap lyrics. Dragon Ball has also made its way into the meme culture, with Super Saiyan and over 9,000 becoming an internet catchphrase. With an ever-sprawling list of productions and goodies, the series is indomitable, and interestingly, it overtook Pokemon in 2024 to become Bandai Namco's most profitable intellectual property, earning a revenue of over 190 billion yen. In a pleasant surprise, Saudi Arabia has even undertaken a project of building a Dragon Ball theme park and is closely working with Toei Animation. Will the world probably witness a Japanese franchise as powerful as Dragon Ball? It influenced an entire generation of anime that followed and set the very blueprint for shonen storytelling. Naruto, Bleach, Yu Yu Hakusho, and all those anime that keep you hooked to the screen carry bits of Dragon Ball magic within their souls, in one way or another. However, as indomitable as Dragon Ball has become, one roadblock, one creative blunder brought about its downfall on the global stage: the 2009 live-action movie. Dragon Ball Evolution was directed by James Wong in what he wrongly believed would become a masterpiece. Starring Justin Chatwin as Goku and James Marsters in the role of Piccolo, the movie met with severe criticism from fans and critics and was a massive box office disaster. Made with a budget of about $30 million, the film grossed about $56.5 million globally and became tagged as the worst movie ever made. The marketing and distribution costs, however, were a separate expenditure, and that being said, Dragon Ball Evolution probably didn't even break even and ran into losses. The marketing strategies did attempt for the best. Digital promotions like a personal expressions campaign on Windows Live Messenger and Fox's collaboration with the picture production company to launch a game before the release actually encouraged fan engagement, all of which subsided once they actually saw the movie. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? How could Dragon Ball stumble that badly? What actually went wrong in the first ever Hollywood live-action adaptation of Dragon Ball? Well, let's take a look. For starters, the very spelling of Dragon Ball in the movie title was wrong, as it's supposed to have two different words, and that's a classic rookie mistake. But Dragon Ball Evolution was a very hasty project by the then 20th Century Fox, who'd been planning a Dragon Ball adaptation since 2002 after acquiring the copyrights. Fox was apprehensive of losing the rights due to inactivity and rushed into getting the production moving. The 2007 to 2008 strike by the Writers Guild of America made matters worse, and the studio was now ready to even cut down the budget from $120 million to 1/4 of that to get the film on the floors. Hitting the theatres in the US, Japan and various other Asian countries, Dragon Ball Evolution was the first of the franchise to be originally produced in English instead of being a dubbed version of a Japanese production. However, in its efforts to be a reimagined narrative of the anime for the Western audiences, the movie was accused of whitewashing due to its casting and lack of compliance to the source material, only being a loose adaptation of Toriyama's shonen manga. The film was centered around Goku going on a mission to fight the wicked alien warlord Piccolo, who intends to use the Dragon Balls to conquer Earth. Dragon Ball Evolution did keep the futuristic towns and flying cars from the manga, but for some reason dropped the talking animals like Shu or Puar from the movie. This made the output even less relevant to the comics. What intended to be the first of many brought about the downfall of the entire series that was to follow. After Dragon Ball Evolution, Fox decided to cancel all subsequent films. Marsters claimed that he had been signed for 3 films and the subsequent ones were to draw upon more Dragon Ball Z parts of the series and delve into Goku's Saiyan origins, all of which were scrapped in an instant. In an interview, Shonen's Jump former editor-in-chief Kazuhiko Torishima finally threw light on how the disaster looked from the inside. An ambitious project, the movie was the biggest professional mistake in Torishima's career, and he claimed it was because of the publisher of Shonen Weekly Jump, Shueisha. The publishing house failed to invest the required money of about $50 million, and soon Japan's creative control over the film was lost. They could no longer provide inputs to the script or in the final cuts, which Torishima believed to be the most significant cost of the movie's artistic and financial collapse. Shueisha, however, had its own reasons to be wary of investing in Dragon Ball Evolution. After the failure of 1983's Dejubu, Friend, a Japanese version of E.T., the company became skeptical of film productions. Torishima even sought legal advice, only to realise that Shueisha basically had no say in how the film would turn out. Before the film's release, Toriyama, the father of Dragon Ball himself, urged fans to look at it as an alternative universe of his creation. In an interview with the Asahi Shimbun in 2013, he revealed that the movie's script was dull and unfaithful to the original work, but unfortunately his suggested changes fell on deaf ears. 3 years later, on the 30th anniversary of Dragon Ball Super History Book, Toriyama once again expressed his disappointment and stated that his reconnection to the Dragon Ball franchise was out of pure reluctance. Even the actors were unhappy with Dragon Ball Evolution. James Marsters disclosed in 2014 that he was misled about the production having a $120 million budget, with Stephen Chow as the producer. However, upon reaching the set in Mexico, Marsters found out that Chow was only nominally involved in the film and the budget was way less than the quoted amount. He also revealed how he was physically injured since stunt doubles couldn't be afforded for certain scenes. The film's writer, Ben Ramsey, also issued a public apology in 2016, admitting his regret over approaching the film without understanding the franchise's passion. He took the sole responsibility for the film's commercial failure and accepted that the work was merely seen as a profit-making project, which resulted in its downfall. Justin Chatwin also offered condolences for Toriyama's death in 2024 and apologised for the movie's quality. Ironically, Dragon Ball Evolution was nominated in the Worst Movie of the Year 2009 category by JoBlo.com, but it even lost there. Of the many reasons Dragon Ball Evolution was a bummer, its deviation from the original storyline and characterizations is of the utmost importance. The filmmakers messed with Goku's timeline and portrayed him as a high school boy, somewhere in the middle of Dragon Ball's younger Goku and Dragon Ball Z's adult one. They hoped that the movie's target shonen lovers would find a high schooler Goku more relevant, a plan which severely backfired for suppressing Goku's inherent traits. The movie tried too hard to root Dragon Ball in reality without even realising that the franchise's USP is its fantasy-driven tales. Even Goku's transformation to Uzaru, the great ape, was undermined in the movie, making him look more like a werewolf than an ape. Moreover, the makers altered Goku's signature finishing move, the Kamehameha, a blast of energy which is capable of destroying lethal enemies and can sometimes even wipe out entire worlds. In the movie, it was portrayed as an air-bending technology. to mark a crossover between the Dragon Ball series and Avatar: The Last Airbender. Its appearance and functionality was even changed, rendering it like a comical, useless power. Kamehameha was turned into a puff of air from a powerful energy blast. The film even messed up with the primary life force of Dragon Ball's characters by once again resorting to the airbending techniques in the story. The creators also misunderstood the importance of certain characters like Krillin and Bulma. For instance, Krillin's role could have offered the much needed comic relief in the film, like it does in the manga, but while other random characters like Mei was added to the film, Krillin was put out of the picture. With Bulma, she was unnecessarily depicted as a serious and conventional female action protagonist. It even demeaned the influence of Grandpa Gohan on Goku's story arc and changed his cause of death by showing he was killed by Piccolo and not on a Dragon Ball hunt. Another great misstep was changing Piccolo's origin story. While he's the Demon King in the manga, whose only goal is to come to Earth and destroy humanity, the movie overcomplicates this entirely. He's shown as a slaver of the Saiyans, who escapes to find the Dragon Balls in a quest to achieve eternal youth. But that's a massive digression, and that's not all. The filmmakers even toyed with Dragon Ball's purposes and functions, changing it from a wish-fulfilling orb to an object created by the mystics that can generate energy. The movie fell flat on its face on the first weekend, only making $4 million. Moreover, it was going against Fast and Furious, which was a bona fide blockbuster by its fourth installment and bagged a whopping $360 million in revenue. Marsters recalled going to the theatre with his child and realised that only 5 people, including him, had turned up for Dragon Ball Evolution. By the second weekend, the movie had dropped to 11th place, with an average, or rather below average, of about 3.6 on Rotten Tomatoes and 45 out of 100 on Metacritic. The movie has been rated a C-grade film by audiences. Critics like Luke Thompson and Zach Bershey called the movie a disastrous mess with a dull script, poor CGI and the wrong casting choices. Dragon Ball Evolution became infamous as the worst film ever made and remained the lowest rated movie on IMDb and Letterboxd for almost a decade. Nevertheless, some reviewers were a little lenient with the analysis and claimed that the film somehow retained the spirit of the anime and could pass off as a one-time watch, maybe. However, this 2009 movie was so underwhelming that it sadly reinforced the notion that live-action adaptations cannot do justice to their anime counterparts. The film cast its shadow on failures of later manga adaptations in Hollywood, with shows like Death Note and Cowboy Bebop opening to hordes of suspicious fans. Sadly, they followed the same trope as Dragon Ball Evolution and received backlash for the unnecessary Americanization of Japanese source material. To be honest, Hollywood was so deeply shattered by Evolution and lost confidence to take up Japanese manga projects for a very long time, it ended up scared of disappointing fans once again. It was only in 2023 that the stigma was broken after a decade, with the success of Netflix's live-action manga show One Piece in 2023. The series was a clear opposite of how Dragon Ball Evolution worked, and this time they actually got the original creator, Ichiro Oda, to approve of the content. Thus, we see what is the result of a diligent and true adaptation. The streaming platform even organised a respectful promotion campaign to show how the makers and cast of the series took blessings from the original creators of One Piece. Torishima is now hopeful that Hollywood has finally learnt from its mistakes and can now evolve into a stage for respectful recreations of original concepts. The best part about One Piece was that it didn't try too hard to Americanize the story to suit the Western audiences, but rather left the characters true to their comic appearances and personalities, with only a few necessary tweaks here and there. Most importantly, Netflix didn't compromise on funding the project to successfully make it look as glorious as it deserved to be. As catastrophic as the fall of Dragon Ball Evolution was, it too had a silver lining. Back in 2009, before the movie, Dragon Ball content was kind of running low for the Eastern and Western viewers, with only the release of Son Goku and his friends return. It was the first Dragon Ball animated series in a decade after Path to Power. Then came the film, which was undeniably a disastrous blow to the franchise and its reputation, but Dragon Ball was and is inevitable. It continued to produce content globally, like video games, and announced new animated movies in 2012 to finally end the creative drought. In a positive turn of events, the movie rekindled fans' interest in the franchise and was highly praised for its music composition, art direction, and most interestingly, the introduction of new characters like Whis and Lord Beerus. All these steps by the brand seemed to rectify the flaws of Evolution, but in reality was laying the groundwork for the franchise to bounce back stronger. It was the Dragon Ball Z Battle of the Gods in 2013 that brought Dragon Ball back into the limelight, scoring huge success in the anime world. Interestingly, Toriyama decided to help with the scripting of this project after being so frustrated with Dragon Ball Evolution. He wasn't ready to let another anime go down the drain. Followed by the much needed success of this one, yet another Dragon Ball Z movie, Resurrection F, hit the screens in 2015 as a direct sequel to The Battle of Gods. This movie was celebrated for introducing Super Saiyan Blue and the fan favourite antagonist Frieza. No sooner were fans getting to taste the original franchise once again, Dragon Ball Super, a full-length anime with 2 seasons, ran from 2015 to 2018. The conclusion is simple. Dragon Ball was now bigger than ever, thanks to a mishap from Dragon Ball Evolution. So, what actually happened with Evolution was that it was a blessing in disguise that somehow revived the entire franchise. Marvellous verdict. It's very easy to see the downfall of Dragon Ball Evolution and the consequent blow to the franchise. The belief was indeed true that Dragon Ball was too big and was too worshipped as a fan franchise to fail, but the overconfidence to go ahead with an unfaithful adaptation of the manga, hoping it would thrive solely on the brand name, was a disastrous idea. What could have been a benchmark in Hollywood anime live action faced the wrath of dejected fans, simply owing to poor and selfish creative choices of the makers. Blindly driven by the force of money making, the movie even hurt the sentiments of the actors who held Dragon Ball in high regard, so much so that James Marsters decided to voice Zamusu's character in the English dubbing of Dragon Ball Super to redeem himself. Not just that, the movie took several blasphemous decisions like toying with the Dragon Ball's powers and depiction of indispensable characters like Grandpa Gohan or Bulma. Additionally, Shueisha's publication's lack of involvement in the film pushed it further to the edge, and Evolution was left open to be dissected by the angry viewers and critics alike. However, the franchise managed to find light at the end of that tunnel. Dragon Ball resurfaced once again with later releases, and this time in all of its glory. As ruinous as Evolution was, I think maybe it's time to go soft on the movie. In the end, it's undeniable that Hollywood took away a much needed lesson on Japanese adaptations after this fiasco, and the new anime recreations that we stream today are a reflection of authentic filmmaking, a quality that the industry has learned to embrace the hard way.